In the suburban town of Westfield, New Jersey, there's a large imposing house at the end of a long drive. Its gables and turrets seem to reach out like claws against the darkening sky. This grand home has a rich history dating back to 1905, when it was built for a wealthy dry goods merchant. But its most famous chapter would begin almost 100 years later. It was May 2014, and Maria and John Graff had just bought their dream home. It was a beautiful 6-bedroom property with a swimming pool that had once been owned by the mafia. Now, after months of searching, it was theirs. And so, with their 3 young kids in tow, they drove up the long driveway, opened the wrought iron gates, and stepped into their new life. But before they could unpack, horrifying events began to unfold. Just days after moving into the house, the family began to receive anonymous letters. At first there was only 1, then 2, then 5. And soon they were arriving daily. Some slipped under the door, others pushed through the letterbox. But they all shared one thing in common. Each was written by someone who called themselves the Watcher. My name is the Watcher. I have been watching this house for years. Did you see how dark it gets in the basement? Maybe you can make it light again, like the way it used to be. It makes me sad to watch you come and go. I won't be so bold as to suggest that you are my guests. To the contrary, I am your host. I have lived here longer than anyone. You are merely visitors. Inevitable, transient visitors. What made these messages so terrifying was that they knew things about the family and their children that shouldn't have been known. Things like the fact that the youngest child had recently turned 5, or that their eldest son loved playing baseball. Then came another letter. This time the tone had changed. I know what you're thinking. Who is this Watcher? Isn't it obvious? I am your worst nightmare. I am God. You are my creation. Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? With every message, the author claimed to be watching them closer and closer. And slowly the family's idyllic new life became a waking nightmare. As we know, the internet is full of armchair detectives. So many people have theories about who this Watcher could have been. A disgruntled realtor, a scorned ex-lover, even a serial killer. I want to hear yours in the comments section below. But what did the police think? Westfield is a quiet community with a population of around 30,000 people. Violent crime is almost unheard of, and prior to 2014, the last murder had been 16 years earlier. When the letters began arriving, the police were baffled. How could somebody know so much about the family and yet remain hidden? After an extensive investigation, they found no forced entry or signs of a break-in. Fingerprints on the letters all came back negative, and there were no witnesses to any of the crimes. Even the handwriting analysis proved inconclusive. With little to go on, the police could only assume that the Watcher was somebody that the family had crossed paths with during the home buying process. So they questioned everyone involved. There was the real estate agent who showed them round, the inspector, the attorney, the mortgage broker. But none of them had any useful information, and eventually they were all cleared. To this day, it's still not known if the Watcher was male or female, young or old, dead or alive. All we know is that they had an unhealthy obsession with the house. For years, the author of the letters watched the home, sometimes commenting on how the grass had grown too long or the lights had stayed on too late. Sometimes they seemed angry, other times sadistic, but always menacing. You do know what would look nice, don't you? One of those girls from the neighborhood, maybe the oldest one, Angela, she looks pretty juicy. She would look pretty nice on the wall, wouldn't she? You could hang her next to the old portrait in the stair landing. Then we would finally have some real decoration in this house. The family never did move in. Instead, they fled their new home in terror. But the mystery doesn't end there. For several years afterward, the home remained empty, or so everybody thought. But in 2018, a new owner moved in. Soon strange things started happening again. People reported seeing a shadowy figure standing at one of the upstairs windows. Then in 2019, there was a power surge in the area and hundreds of homes lost electricity. But one house remained lit, the Watcher House. And lastly, in 2021, a couple moved in and soon received a threatening letter. It was dated April 1st, which led them to believe it was a cruel joke. But the postmark clearly stated that it had been sent on March, so we're left with more questions than answers. Could the Watcher have been a former resident of the house? Perhaps one of the previous owners wanted to scare off the new buyers so that they would leave and they could keep the home for themselves. Maybe it was somebody who lived in the neighborhood. Or perhaps it was somebody completely random, somebody who lived thousands of miles away and simply had an unhealthy interest in the house. Somebody who knew the layout inside out, who studied the floor plans and watched the construction work being done. Somebody who waited patiently for the perfect moment to strike. Before we continue, please take a moment to like this video if you enjoyed it so far, and subscribe if you haven't already. It really means a lot to us and helps us grow. In 2018, Netflix released a series based on the story, The Watcher, starring Ryan Murphy, but the true story is far more frightening than the dramatized version. What's truly terrifying about this case is that after all these years, the Watcher still hasn't been caught. Here in Britain, we often think of America as being a very safe place. I mean, it's the land of opportunity and freedom, right? But sadly, that's not always true. Because while the police might not be able to catch the Watcher, that doesn't mean that he isn't real. Imagine this. You've just bought your dream home, a property with a rich history, beautiful architecture, and stunning grounds. After weeks of searching, you've finally found somewhere that you can raise a family, somewhere that you can call home. But just as you're unpacking your boxes, terrifying letters begin arriving in the mail. Letters that knew things about you and your family that shouldn't have known. Things like the fact that your youngest son has just started school, or that your daughter has a fear of dogs. Then the phone rings, and on the other end of the line is a voice that says, "How do you like your new house? You should be careful, because somebody's watching you." At first, you laugh it off, put down the phone, and try to get on with your life. But then the calls start coming in every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And each time the voice becomes more sinister, more menacing. I know what you're thinking. Why is this person stalking me? What do they want? Should I call the police? The truth is that nobody knows what the Watcher wants. All we know is that they have an unhealthy obsession with the house. An obsession that could turn deadly. One minute you're relaxing in your home, sipping a glass of wine and enjoying the company of friends. The next, you hear screams in the street and breaking glass. As you look outside, you see that your car has just been smashed and the windows are coated with blood. But whose blood? Is it really possible that the Watcher has finally snapped? If you've made it this far, then thank you for watching. I'm the host. If you enjoyed this video, then check out the playlist where you'll find more stories like this one. Until next time, sleep tight.